Hi, everybody.
Hello, Internet. My name's Paige. Welcome to my channel. I know that my tiny microphone might make me sound and look like I'm an ASMR influencer, but unfortunately, I'm just an average girlish nobody who's here to talk to you today. What I want to talk to you guys about today is self sabotage because if self sabotage was an Olympic sport, I think that I would be the world champion. I'm extremely talented at making sure that scenarios do not work out in my favor by my own accord. What does self sabotage look like when it's presenting itself in your life? And what makes a person do that to themselves? Now, of course, I don't have all the answers, and this video is completely personal experience. But if there's anyone out there who feels like they too are a professional self saboteur, then strap in because this video is for you, baby. I personally am a chronic grudge holder and also a chronic forgiver. I'm not sure if forgiver is a word, but I also don't care because I'm choosing to label myself that anyways. It's very miraculous to somehow be both of these at once and not enjoy being either of them. I've seen myself stay angry at people with strong cases of redemption for way longer than necessary and at the same time become a doormat for people who are hurting me on purpose. This is a double-edged sword, and I've found that that is a fantastic weapon for self-sabotage. See, if you don't care about your own well-being, then you can really just play on anybody's team as long as it isn't your own. To win this game, you really just have to do whatever keeps you from moving on, whatever keeps you from healing. I'm going to talk about grudge holding first because I found this to be a little bit less common for me than forgiving people. But there are still several grudges that have been extremely hard for me to kick in my life. And most of them come from my primary school, specifically middle school or high school. It's pretty normal to have bad falling outs between friends when you're a kid. Everybody is still learning who they are and how to interact with other people, how to navigate uncomfortable situations and be honest about their feelings. And it's no surprise that 14, 15-year-old kids are not very good at this. But it doesn't make it any less painful when it happens to you. Today, I'm going to focus on one instance in particular that happened to me in about early high school with a friend that I'm going to call Mark. This was a very classic toxic friendship. I think a lot of people would probably relate to this actually. Mark would talk poorly about me to mutual friends and try to put wedges between us when there weren't ones. He would speak poorly of my interests and things that I enjoyed while I was doing them, and sometimes even call me names to my face. It was very strange and painful to experience this from somebody that was supposed to be my friend. It was very hard to get over the initial betrayal of realizing that someone I cared about did not care the same way for me. So, Paige, how did you process these feelings? How did you get over these very difficult experiences? I'm so glad that you asked because considering that I was 14, I actually think that I did it in maybe the worst way possible. And that is staying angry forever and holding a grudge until the end of time. No, seriously. I spent years kind of obsessing over what happened between Mark and I that would make him feel so negatively about me. I was trying to find moments where I could have changed things or made him like me better. I would really hurt myself by telling myself that if someone hated me as much as he seemed to, then I must have done something to deserve it. But even after years of reflecting on this friendship, I could not come up with much. And so instead, I just beat myself up over like mystery mistakes. I just used my brain to imagine the parts of me that Mark must have hated and then decided to hate them too. It was like a perpetual cycle of pain and betrayal, and sometimes I was reliving these moments daily. Of course, now that I'm almost 22, I logically know that sometimes kids are going through things that you're not aware of, and sometimes kids are just mean for no reason. And yet, even knowing that and also knowing a little bit more now about where Mark was at this time, I still found it extremely difficult to forgive him. It's really hard to forgive when your pain kind of manifests like a bruise. And you know that if you just press on the bruise, it's going to hurt like it's fresh, like it just happened. I would relive my experiences, press on the bruise, and mistake the pain as meaning that the bruise is still relevant. I would mistake it as meaning that I was still being injured. But injured by who? Now, I know what you may think, but like I said, I am not always a chronic grudge holder. In fact, a lot more often, I opt for the other option, which is making myself a doormat. Being a doormat looks like forgiving someone even before they've apologized. It looks like not being honest with someone when they've hurt your feelings and not advocating for yourself. And naturally, this is a really bad place to be in personal relationships because a healthy relationship of any sort requires a mutual level of respect. And if one person is being walked all over, then that respect is not there. I'm going to focus on one romantic relationship that I had in which I feel like I was particularly doormat esque, and that is with somebody that I'm going to call Carl. Carl was a jealous boyfriend. He controlled my outfits, he controlled who I talked to and how I spent my time. We would get into fights very often, and even more often, these fights would become very vicious. Unfortunately, no matter how bad these fights got, I would kind of instantly forgive Carl. I could never be honest about how deeply I was hurt, and I definitely could not get myself to leave him. I always had an excuse for everything that he did. It was almost like he had some sort of weird immunity that I was granting him, where even before he would mess up, I had already forgiven him. And this is a really dangerous place to be. I forgave Carl so much that I forgot that you can have a boyfriend that you do not have to forgive. I started questioning if there was anyone out there that would love me different, and if there was, if they would actually love me at all. Yet again, I felt that if someone treated me this way, then I must deserve it, and that anyone out there who would never do such a thing would also never be interested in someone like me, whatever that means. I basically didn't break up with Carl until something really big happened to the point where he wasn't allowed to enter my house anymore, and then I didn't really have a choice. Upon reflection, I find it really interesting that I was able to offer like endless forgiveness to Carl, and yet I came up empty handed for Mark again and again. Despite my reactions being different, these two relationships did have something similar, and that was the fact that the emotional outcome for me would end up being the same. And that is that I was reacting in ways that would keep me from moving on. Holding a grudge, instantly forgiving. Subconsciously, I had changed my reaction in order to draw the same painful outcome. And I think that this is for a very specific reason. I theorize that for whatever reason, deep down, I believed that my suffering was justified. I accepted when people treated me in a way that mirrored my own low self opinion. And this is the true complication of self sabotage because it builds upon itself. The worse that you accept yourself to be treated, the lower your self esteem will become. And then the lower your self esteem becomes, the more mistreatment you will be willing to withstand. I imagine self sabotage to be a lot like a snake eating its own tail. Are you born disliking yourself, or are you taught that you should? I want to be clear that a victim of mistreatment is not to blame for said mistreatment. You can't predict that behavior, and I don't think that the average person is well prepped to handle it when it arises. Perpetrators are not successful because of who their victim is, but rather what they are able to convince them they deserve. Being a self saboteur is not a call for mistreatment. My tendency for being one is not highlighted in the fact that I entered the relationships that I'm talking about, but rather in the way that I treated myself after they went sour and ended. What I needed was to heal. I needed to show myself the kindness that other people did not. Instead, I showed myself a final betrayal and just sided with the people who had hurt me. I turned on myself and said that I deserved the pain that I was feeling and that I was doing it for my own good. If I was ever close to making progress, then I would press on the bruise again. I would remember. It was nearly impossible to move on to better things when I was forcing my past to remain my present. Doing this is where I was truly sabotaging myself, because doing this is where I became my own victim. I think that my self esteem was at the lowest when my self sabotaging tendencies were at their highest. And when you have a low self esteem, it becomes extremely challenging to take on things that are, well, challenging. Your foundation of self-belief is disrupted. You don't trust yourself to do things that will make your life better. You don't trust yourself to accomplish tasks and reach goals. And so instead, you make excuses for why you shouldn't even try. It's kind of like that saying about how when you fall off the horse, you have to get right back on, or else you might develop a fear that keeps you from ever getting back on again. But self sabotage is like falling off the horse and then deciding that that means that you quite literally don't deserve to get back on again. It's between you and your mind to escape and make progress, and yet your mind feels like a prison, and in this case, you're the jailer. I find myself doing this in a lot of ways, and I think that everybody probably does. For me personally, it looks like thinking that I know how a situation is going to go before it's gone. Like, I won't apply for a job because I'll assume that they're just going to reject me, or I won't try to become friends with someone I think is cool because I think that they won't think I'm cool back. I am now denying my own needs, my own goals, and devaluing my own feelings. I am treating myself no better than these people who have hurt me so badly in the past. I become frozen by the fear of not knowing where to go next because deep down I don't trust myself to choose the right direction. It's like I'm standing in one place so long that the grass has turned to mud underneath my feet, but I'm hoping that if I just wait around a little bit longer, the grass might grow back. And you are left to stand like this eternally until you're willing to go back and revisit those feelings of betrayal and hurt that your self sabotaging tendencies specifically helped you avoid processing. It took me about 5 years to finally get to a place of forgiveness for Mark. And now I can say that that's so much more cathartic than the anger I was allowing to run wild. Oddly enough, I think that the more difficult part was allowing myself to actually be upset about how Carl and people like him treated me while I was around them. Reflecting on the times where you became a doormat and realizing that you actually deserved better is a fantastic step in the right direction for your self esteem and self trust. By reframing who you were in the past to be a person who didn't deserve the mistreatment you experienced, you're also reframing who you are in the present to be a person that does not deserve to be mistreated in the future. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that it does. If you've been suffering consistently because of a person, situation, or mindset, I think it's imperative to evaluate the hand that you may play in that suffering. Of course, I'm not talking about everything. There are times when this may be absolutely zero or very, very small. However, there are plenty of amazing examples of this. If your partner has cheated on you multiple times or even once, I'm talking to you. If you're working a job that makes you miserable, but you're too scared to even look for another one, I'm talking to you. If you stalk your ex best friend on Instagram because you're scared that they're doing better than you, I'm talking to you. If you won't even apply to a school that you want to go to because you think they'll reject you, I'm talking to you. If you're any of these things and more, use your imagination. I'm talking to you. I'm actually probably talking to you. It's counterproductive and unfair to yourself to desire better but choose for the worst. I know it's easy to say that because I also know how heavy the weight of your own agency can feel. Self sabotage is being stuck in the mud, and I have been stuck in the mud so many times. I've mistook the mud filling my shoes for cement, but in the end, it's just mud, and all of you are stronger than a little bit of wet dirt. We all want fuller gardens. We all want greener pastures, but your garden can't grow if you're trampling it, and you can't find greener pastures if you're stuck in the mud. I understand how strange it can feel to retire from self sabotaging. It's something that I have to actively do every single day, but it's something that I think we're all capable of doing. In fact, it's important to do if you want your life to get better. So, what do you say? Are you a self saboteur? Are you ready to quit? Let me know in the comment section or just share any other experiences you may have on this topic. If you have room for one more girlish nobody in your phone, feel free to hit that subscribe button. And until the next time, stay positive.
Me? Yeah, so please do like and subscribe. It helps her.
Yep, thank you.